Warm greetings, everyone. Welcome to another session of Friday Water's Thesis Club. Today's Friday Water Thesis Club session is on water as Jeevadhaara, lifeline, and Daivam, divine presence. The Friday Water series is an extension of the flagship program Wednesdays for Water of the WforW Foundation, a think tank built as a citizens collective. The idea of Friday Waters is to wet the Fridays with fun-filled and yet fruitful activities for the future generation. Friday Water series has water talkies, book reading club, thesis club, which is today, water arts, and meet a mess through some of these sessions taking place on the availability of the speakers. The focus of the thesis club is on bringing the students or scholars who have done or are doing some aspects of water matters in their research in order to discuss with them their identified problem or issues or inquisitiveness, look at their aims and objectives, methodology, research design, fieldwork, findings, and learning. The focus is actually on the research design and methods they take so that we can expand it to tell other people. In the process of the discussion, we would like to know the making of the research subject and the contribution it eventually will have in the larger science as well as society. The session is also meant to increase the research and the researchers' outreach in the process. My name is Mansee Bal Bhargava from the House of WforW, and I'm the moderator for today's session, and I'm joined by Professor Sonia Gupta from Boston University, Hyderabad, as our long-term discussant for today's session. Thanks, Sonia, for joining us today. And today we also have our esteemed guest, who is a PhD scholar, Afreen Fatima, and she is conducting her PhD at SPA Bhopal. And I will stop here and invite Sonia to take Fatima along with this session and also introduce Fatima and set the rules of the game for today. Over to you, Sonia. Thanks.
Thanks, Bansi. Of course, a warm welcome to Afreen, but also special wishes on this day because I think most of us are teachers, and special wishes for a very, very happy Teachers' Day. And with that, please allow me to introduce Afreen Fatima. She is an architect, researcher, and educator with close to 2 decades of experience in architectural practice, in cultural landscape studies, and sustainable design pedagogy. She is currently pursuing her PhD at the School of Planning and Architecture, Bhopal, where her research focuses on the ritual ecologies and hydrological wisdom embedded in the stepwells or baolis of Telangana. Her doctoral inquiry interprets these subterranean structures as sacred, performative, and climate adaptive systems that anchor community memory, spiritual cosmology, and ecological resilience. Since 2008, Afreen has practiced professionally in Muscat, Oman, where she served as a design lead at Al Basma United LLC, leading multidisciplinary projects in institutional, residential, and urban contexts. Her return to academic research builds on this practical foundation, bringing field driven insight into historical water systems and their contemporary relevance. During the course of her doctoral work, she has been the recipient of 2 Best Paper Awards for original contributions in water heritage and sustainability studies, underscoring the scholarly impact of her research on traditional water systems and cultural resilience in semi arid regions. Afreen has also received a national level recognition as Best Architect in 2018 by the KW Educational Trust for her excellence in design and community management. No mean feat, I tell you. A dedicated educator, she currently serves as a visiting faculty member at Jawaharlal Nehru Architecture and Fine Arts University, Hyderabad, mentoring students in sustainability, conservation, and indigenous knowledge systems. Beyond her academic and professional pursuits, Afreen is also an accomplished artist and illustrator. Her nature inspired portraiture and visual storytelling have been featured in several children's books and independent exhibitions. With that, it's over to you, Afreen. Rules of the game are very simple. You have a maximum of 25 minutes to present, after which we will discuss. We will ask you a few questions. It's more like a discussion. Me first, then Mansee, and then we close. Is that clear, Afreen?
Thank you so much. And
Yeah,
thank you
please
for the
take over.
question. Yeah, I'll start. Thank you. Yes. So I begin with the question, what if water scarcity is not just a crisis of resources, but it is the crisis of imagination? Um, it's visible on slideshow. Yes, I think it's visible on slideshow. Yeah. My thesis is titled Baulis and Cultural Landscapes of Telangana, and is about how the stepwells, what we call Baulis in our region, and are more than architectural structures. They are definitely more with the cultural parallels, which I intend to extract empirically and incorporate into a qualitative study. Um, as we go further is that first I'm looking at whole of India and how water itself is when we receive the resource, it is in different forms. It could be a surface water harvesting system where tanks, cheruvues, or kuntas are structures which gather the monsoon and they store it in uh, a certain built structure. And these are not just reservoirs, they are landscapes which are associated with sometimes rituals or cultural parallels. And that is the surface water harvesting system. So we are talking about water as a resource, um, when received, is both autogenic and allogenic. And it could, when we look at the autogenic, that is the intermittent source, which is not perennial in nature, it becomes a either a roof water harvesting, it becomes a runoff induced water harvesting, or in situ or flood water. And when I have understood that there are these water systems which direct you across the geography of India into each type of harvesting, there are certain hybrids also at the same time. And when we see the hybrids, I have filtered down to the most pressing point as per the empirical research, which I'm not showing here more further detail, is the aspect of the groundwater being the most endangered form of water, which is getting, it has its own challenges with respect to um, threats which are the quality of groundwater is deteriorating day by day, and the urban cities are the ones which are incurring the biggest the blunt is coming to them. So hence what I'm looking at is the towards our region, the groundwater harvesting systems which are the baulis. And as I dissected all across the 50 ecological systems, the ecological zones are as per Anil Agarwal's documentation of 1997, The Dying Wisdom. And we are looking at the different geographies and their genius mannerisms of water systems. And I've gone further and understood each of them. And I am now narrowing down to my zone 10, which is the Deccan region. And here in the zone 10, we are looking at how water, how each region in the Deccan is rich by itself. And when we are talking about the groundwater systems, we are talking about the step zone 10 being the step wells. Yes. So, as we are speaking of the region where traditional water systems are not just survival structures, but cultural landscapes with outstanding universal values, in the zone 10, we are looking at that the Deccan Plateau as a cultural landscape where physical systems and the cultural components both come together and process into intangible cultural heritage also as per the UNESCO. And when we are looking at the intangible aspects, we are looking at the social practices and the rituals where community as together come together into um, um, this is the social fabric of the place, which actually brings an identity to the place, which is unique in its nature. So hence we go further and direct it down to the traditional water systems, where we are looking at the physical component of the Bauli, um, giving us evidence about its own evolution across a timeline, and um, towards the natural and the cultural components. And we see the concept of the Bauli in a more multi-nuanced dimension manner. And here, if we are looking at the region, we are looking at the river, Krishna riverbed. And in this, the Krishna riverbed being played its part in so many facets. It's rich in culture and agriculture, and in every manner, Krishna is rich. So we are dissecting at the Musi uh, front towards Hyderabad, further down, and mostly we are covering whole of Telangana as our case studies. So this is the region of Telangana. And when we are looking at the region of the Deccan dynasties, we see that the traditional water systems, they are not static. They have here I've tried to put across color sensitive mapping of the across the dynasties, where when the traditional water systems came into being, and how they were further evolving across. Um, Blue indicating that they were water harvesting structures for irrigation, yellow indicating they had a social and a cultural parallel, and green indicating a maritime trade. And as we see the Satavahana dynasty, the Cholas and the Cheras and the Pallavas, we see the Ganga and the Rashtrakutas. And as we go further down to the later dynasties, the Bahamanis and the Qutub Shahis, that is the first invasions from the Mughal, and further down into the Deccan when they come through the Malwa. We see the Bahamanis splitting into the five dynasties, and then we see the Qutub Shahi taking over towards Hyderabad as an empire, and the princely state of Hyderabad is established. And across the Bahamani, Qutub Shahi, Asafjai, they blend the Persian traditions, and the gardens are seen and the Baulis are seen. And apart from the fact that the Kakatiyas had great understanding of the tanks and the stepwells, what here in the Qutub Shahi, we see water is sacred in a very utilitarian manner, and an urban intervention is also established by the time we see the independence era come in. So the Asif Jai is the seventh Nizam. He hands over, and the princely state of Hyderabad then blends into the independent India. So while we dissect further, we also understand that the region is not independent. The inscriptions of the region across time, they acknowledge they are not accidental. The occurrences of these stepwells in the traditional water systems, they are always guided by tradition, and the ancient text is giving us exact water positioning. Also, it is guiding us about the planning aspect and the measure, and it's measured by mandalas. It is the merging of the science and the cosmology together. And we understood that the Stapati, the architect, is he in the mandala and the sutra based measurements, they align in the temples and the tanks, and they show basically the geometry and the rituals of the place. And if you see, obviously in the Mauryan dynasty, in the Chandragupta Maurya time, through Kautilya's Arthashastra, there was a whole planning. If you see the early centuries, towards how water placement would be there. It reveals about the canals, the reservoirs, and the wells, and the proportions, and the precision through which water was guided in a typical city. And then we further dissected in the region the Mayamatam. And so what I have done is I've gone ahead and collected from the Sanskrit text evidences in the chapter citing the water placement and the positioning. And when I have understood it through a lot of translations which are available on desk these days. Especially, I would acknowledge Vibhuti Sakdev's work, which is pretty contemporary and anybody can read it. It doesn't need any background. And then we go further from Mayamatam to Mansar, and what I see is that the Ishanya, the manner in which each water is placed, it's sacred. And how it's not just good water, it's also the dirty water placement. And it definitely gives me a lot of heads up when I find these stepwells. So I went ahead and I'm looking at the palaces. So I am also curious also the positioning of the stepwells and the original um, cardinal directions of the magnetic earth. These somehow are there is a 12.5-degree deflection between the north of the stepwell, which was in that era, and to the magnetic earth's cardinal direction. So we are understanding that this is plainly because the magnetic north and the north, which was calculated in the earlier through the sundials and through the compass which was earlier used, there is a certain deflection because of the exact direction. Yes. And this has been really fascinating and revealing to us. And who can overlook the regions? We have the trade routes which are defining the region's importance because of the Hyderabad was a very important city all through time because of there were these cultural and the social overlaps happening in the place. And these were not just loose fragments, these gave evidences to a certain typology of the wells also, which were found in forts and sarais also. And this is just a pictorial collage of what we are looking at and mapping them across. And yes, and the fact that Bagmati or Hyderabad's name is inspired from Baghs. Yes, we know that Sitaram Bagh, Ibrahim Bagh, Kishan Bagh, each name which is of its layered past is revealed in the contemporary Hyderabad itself. So where gardens and wells and the sacred groves all point to the water wisdom which was embedded in the region. And I think we should not overlook them. And this is a part of the history's own script, and these need to be acknowledged. And as we go further, I am looking at, the main hypothesis of the research is now framed with, so I'm just into the second year of my research, and I'll go look at going further down the lane into, my research is more cyclic again, looking at the hydrological cycle. I, as any Indian, will cherish rains and go ahead to my field visit when it rains and make sure my post-monsoon documentation will also complete. And so my main hypothesis of the research is looking at Baulis are not just architectural structures, they are also a ritualistic landscape. My inquiry begins with the hypothesis that the spatial character of the Bauli is shaped by the ritual practices itself, and in turn, it shapes it back, and a reciprocal relationship is established. And what does the evidence show us? Festivals tied to water, temples anchored to stepwells, dynasties remembered through their tanks. These are not just scattered details, but they align traces, evidences forming the very spins in the evidences of the research. Okay, so my aim is to investigate this reciprocity and between the ritual and the stepwell. And the scope takes us across the Telangana's cultural zones and the dynastic histories from the Kakatiya to the Asarjai. And the objectives are to identify and analyze and frame a methodology to which links water architectural ritual practice and the cultural resilience together. So the question is history pointing so continuously at these alignments, and can we still look at the Baulis as more relics or must we see them as living cultural frameworks? And if we are going further into the hydrological evidences, which we are seeing in the because of the Western Ghats, Hyderabad have dry patches, and it ends up of having, if we are looking at the hydrological data, we see a rain shadow region formed in many of the zones. And such regions in the pre-monsoon and the post-monsoon times, after the rain, they tend to react differently. So water harvesting was very mandatory. So, and when I have understood that, I dissected the region with the sense, with this sensitivity to agroclimatic zones, and each zone is having its uniqueness to the manner in which stepwells are scattered and are present. So what we have observed is that the southern Telangana is drier, and it has the capital Hyderabad, of course, and more of these occurrences of the Baulis and the stepwells, as per the hypothesis, are proved to have mapped. And because there was lack of these perennial source, more of these water harvesting structures occurrences have been seen. And obviously, the what we have also seen is that the locals and the tribes in each region are more intelligently understanding how they are well, you know, tied up to their rituals and their cultures. And if I go further, then in the north zone, their occurrences across the temples and the forts and the uh, you see the Kamareddy and the Adilabad and the Nizamabad stepwells are clusters around the temples and the forts here, and the evidences align clearly where the ritual defense stood with water in this coincidences, or is it the Telangana cultural landscape which is actually evident towards the because of the occurrence of the Godavari in the northern region. You see a lot of tribes also who are totally in the northern zone, and in the central zone what we see is that the Sangareddy alone shows 12 stepwells which which have diversity unmatched in the data set. If one district preserves such a variety, that is Sangareddy itself, or does it not tell us that the stepwells were social and religious, and they were anchors all at once for the cohesion itself? Towards the south, what we see is that Hyderabad dominates the stepwells, and 74 stepwells were found in which are evidently mapped, and these are through HMDA's survey of 2023 Jan, which was released. And this is a funded research which was carried out by a group of architects, which was led by Yashwant Ramamurthy sir. He's a very senior legend in Hyderabad itself. He has the Hyderabad Design Forum coming together and publishing a HMDA funded work. And through these evidences, I was able to infer that the southern region, which has most of the stepwells, um, they are woven in the mosques, the tombs, and the temples and the forts, and the Indo-Islamic heritage and the vernacular practices, they meet together here. And Hyderabad is obviously, because of its significant history, is has a very strong water story to tell. And across the regions, when I'm seeing, because of the 2014 Telangana state formation, a lot of these initiatives which tell Telangana to acknowledge its roots have started. And one of them is also about restoring stepwells. And across the regions and across the time, um, uh, acknowledging the roots of these stepwells have become a part of acknowledging Telangana's identity, because it's unique in its own way. And what we see is I've gone ahead and understood even water, economic and the social aspects which happened in the earlier Kakatiya and the Bahamian time. And there were a lot of water conflicts and because wars and trade um, rules which were even water taxes that way, which were established because these were the first manner in which water was economically, the socio-economic impact of water started to frame from here, where a simple pulley would be taxed. And this is where water tax in the Asif Jahi dynasty, you would see that the Telangana rebellion was also about the peasants and the the locals, the hardcore locals of Telangana, who were more farmers and simple tribes which existed and they fueled the economy. They were harshly taxed by the center, and when they did that, this fueled the overall Telangana rebellion, and the state formation in 2014 happened. Even though Andhra Pradesh was a whole Telugu state, the Telangana state formation, which obviously, it completely emphasized the fact that Telangana should acknowledge its identity. Yes. And while we did this, we further went ahead into the regions, and so I have now the case studies coming together. And so this one is a Raigiri stepwell. It is in Yadgiri Gutta side. And while we so there is a Sri Venkateshwara Swami Tirtham, which is attached to this temple. What you see is that the locals of the place and the most important people of the place, they fuel the Jatara, and it's a 5-day Jatara which comes across into the place. And the temple comes alive, and a whole social cohesion. You see each day has a certain importance. And across the built character, when I was mapping, there is a viewing gallery for the zamindar to sit and view the onto the pavilion. There would be the festival itself. And we are talking about the Sri Venkateshwara Swami Chakra Tirtham, which is the alignment of the cosmic wedding. And here the um, especially towards the pavilion, you are seeing that there is the Kalyana Mandapa, which integrates the further into the other days rituals, which where there's a Ratavosanam, there is a Chakra Tirtham, there is a Abhishekam. All these each day has a certain significance, and the Kalyana Mandapa, Kalyanam which happens is of the deity which resides, the Padmavati Garu deity, which resides across on the hilly top. And here there is another temple from which the deity descends down. We on a certain lunar hour, on this particular festival which happens towards the just before the February. And this is since 200 years this particular jatara happens. And then there is the Sri Venkateshwara Swami deity, which is if you see in the map, it is placed on the right side of this stepwell itself. And so the wedding ceremony is performed, and a grand celebration is done across the 5 days. And all of this is what it becomes like a whole social event for those locals. And it's beautiful. I mean, the scale at which it goes, and it gives people their own reason to come together. So this itself is very nostalgic. So such evidences are something what I feel definitely fuel the built character of the place, and obviously for the conservation of the place, this is very important. And another one is the Ashtamukhi stepwell. So after having heard the stories around the Ashtamukhi, I was able to draft the such an illustration which actually tells further about how the step wells integrates into the ritual and the cultural aspect. So I'll play a short movie, and I hope it's for me to explain the story which is associated this particular case study. I would be playing the movie. Namaskaram. From Telangana, we bring to SIWI World Water Week the living story of water, harvested, conserved, and celebrated through an ancient stepwell that still shapes life today. Because water is not merely a resource to be used, but a living heritage to be revered. Its conservation an act of respect, its celebration a renewal of life. Namaskaram. From Telangana. Celebrated through an ancient stepwell that still shapes life today. Because water is not merely a resource to be used, but a living heritage to be revered. Its conservation an act of respect, its celebration a renewal of life, and its sacredness a reminder that our survival and culture flow from the same source. India, Telangana, Nizamabad district, Janakampet village, a traditional water system carved during the Kakatiya era. The village is named after Janakamma, a revered matriarch. She is believed to have led the first Brahmotsavan. Sri Lakshmi Narasimha Swami is worshipped as the remover of Shani Dosham. It is believed that Saturn's influence weakens through darshan and ritual baths here, performed in the Ashtamukhi Koneru. Historical patronage. The temple dates back to the 9th-10th century CE, built during the Rashtrakuta rule and later supported by the Western Chalukyas, Kakatiyas and the local zamindars during the Nizam era. The temples were more than the built and fueled the local economy. Inscriptions and oral history suggest that the site received land grants and community patronage through the Kakatiya period, especially under Rudramadevi's reign, when water structures in temples were actively maintained through sabhas or the local assemblies. The octagon, it is not just a form, but it is a rhythm drawn from the Vastu Mandala, aligned to the cosmos. A mandala where 8 sages once sat, facing the 8 horizons, meditating to calm Narasimha's fury. At the navel of the deity, it was said, water must be brought. And so the stepwell was carved. Each arm holds their footprint. In certain lunar hours during the sacred cycles, holy baths are taken, not as a ritual alone, but as remembrance. When we first entered, we were unknown, but the forest welcomed, the elders nodded, the priest smiled. Slowly, we came from. We were called Amma, Akka, Chelli. During the Magha Purnima, villagers prayed not just to Narasimha, but also to the Hanuman shrines, the Shiva temples,
the Dashavatars. This is not a place of division, it is a circle of belief. The locals welcomed us, they explained, they shared. Stories, customs, ecology, it all came together. The youth began to return. Sketch, clean, document, listen. Elders began to tell stories again. The well filled not just with water, but with memory and attachment. Namaskar.
And this that being the Ashtamukhi stepwell, uh, you know, documentation where we were able to extract a story about the built form and the shape of the stepwell. That's what we understand, and it is pretty untouched. The whole context, the hilltop onto which the stepwell is placed, the temple, many of the aspects are pretty untouched, and the locals come together. There is a fine annual Ramotsavanam which happens once in a year, and this is just before the monsoon sets in full swing. And there is a certain fear also which I have mapped about how if you go further into the well, you might just lose yourself and drown because um, there are powerful aspects of faith which are monitored around these places, and here it's pretty untouched. The whole of the forest, the Danda Aranya, which they say, all of it is completely intact. And next is the six Qutub Shahi Baulis, which everybody is pretty familiar with, the Qutub Shahi tombs. That is the necropolis of the Qutub Shahi dynasty. And what we learn from this is that that whole actually the place where Qutub Shahi tombs are, the whole of the western front of Hyderabad is suffering from water scarcity, and the urban scenario is really bad with flooding also. Not in now the rains are in full swing, and no foolproof water retention methods have been sorted in those regions. And what we see is here a case study which is so rich in its nature, and water harvesting giving way and scope to a legacy which was first visualized. Now, the gardens which are inspired from the gardens mentioned in the Quran about the gardens of the heaven, and how water would flow through them is exactly replicated in the char bags across the seven tombs. And what we see is good six stepwells which are conserved by the Aga Khan Trust. And this is a map of the conservation aspect which was involved by the Aga Khan. And here, the hydrology of the place is making the whole 106 acres of the necropolis completely net zero with respect to water. And they have, in fact, for this particular conservation, they have received um, UNESCO's award of cultural, um, and for the stepwells itself, this is the award received, and the Badi Bauli is the biggest Bauli, and
Afreen, I'm sorry to disturb you, to interrupt. Yeah, so we are really running a little out of time, and you still have many. Can it be possible that we talk about your rest of the study through the questions? Mansi, what do you
yeah,
think?
sure, ma'am. Sure. So this is the case study of the stepwells. What I did is I went ahead and you know understood the aspect which reflected in the conservation of the biodiversity still coming back, and we were able to tell through folklore and illustrations this story, and then what we see next.
Yes, Freen, we'd have to stop. I mean, you will have to stop at this point. And we take up, we are privy, both of us are privy to the rest of your presentation as well. So we could probably bring up some of the questions from there if you don't mind. Is that
Okay, sure.
okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's, yeah.
Okay, great.
Maybe I
And,
request
and, and I
Afreen
just,
to
just that
reach
the
the,
fact that I
yes,
ended the
conclude.
presentation um, with the fact that the case studies, the whole
Yes,
process is
yes.
still going on my research, like I'm 2 years down the lane. And so I just am, happy that I was able to have this platform provided by Mansee, and this is such a honor. So I just want to take this opportunity to go further with my storytelling, and if please do scan, and I really appreciate that if people will just go ahead and answer the survey.
I'm just taking the scan so that I don't lose it. Yes, I will do the whatever you want us to do regarding this. I got the scan. Yes.
Thank you so
So,
much.
Freen, it's absolutely remarkable, your study. And I think it is one of the most holistic approaches that I have seen in terms of looking at step wells as not only a means of social and cultural, but all the absolutely all the facets and factors that could be clued in. So, what I'm really wondering, and I started to smile when he talked about the Qutub Shahi tombs. I'll tell you why. But before that, I'm just thinking that in there you have given a chart in wherein you have showed us that the social there was one color coded few slides, and you were talking about how some of them had a socio cultural value and some didn't. It was right. Did it in any way, do you think, especially in I saw in the Western Chalukya and Hoysala dynasties, it did not seem to carry on that social cultural value. Do you think it broke the continuity in any way as far as history is concerned?
No, I don't think so. Because what I've also observed in the research is that um, the water structures somehow they have a very important place in the economic aspect um, of the whole civilization. So if one dynasty has to fall and the other has to rise, they still spare the water systems. So the social and the social cultural aspect is somehow still intact, and I've seen so many stepwells where another dynasty has come ahead and in their own style of architecture have conserved some part of that stepwell. So we are seeing those evidences in built in Telangana. Yes, definitely.
I mean, it's a beautiful answer, and I'm going to quickly go back to what you said about the Qutub Shahi dynasty, the necropolis. And I don't know whether you've ever had any conversation with I think he's the CEO, but he's also the principal architect, Ratish. And he was discussing one day that initially uh, the stepwells were not all found. So, and they had, whatever was seen, they had only permission to restore those. So when a Baoli was discovered by chance and he wanted to use it, I mean, when I say he, the Aga Khan trusted, he had to wait months to get permission because it was all so much of red tape. And he said, I spent so much of my energy trying to convince them how I will use that step well. And once we could revive it not only, I mean, they didn't need any more water on site. The tankers were getting water otherwise. So he said the economic fallout of that was only understood after months. So Yeah, I totally get what you say that the economic value is underrated. You talked about it in the Ashtamukhi slide also. And I'm thinking Kautilya being what he was, the taxation. Do you think that was a good policy and that could be replicated yet?
The tax.
Hmm. The
Yeah.
usage, the tax, because now we think, oh, tax is a meter. But when you're using a step well, the water of a step well, how do you, is there any system in place by which you can do the taxation? Because there was a system, obviously.
Yes,
You
yes,
talked
they will.
about
They
it.
will, especially penalties, for wasting water or damaging a property because it's a public good. If ownership is coming together, I would say yes, let's have a tax to some extent because somewhere down, citizens must, come together and acknowledge the ownership, their own role. So this is one manner which is very minimal actually, the
Absolutely.
tax. It is nothing which is of a very great nature, which I see it's there on everything else, the tax. But
Hmm.
water has a minimal tax. We are talking about maintenance. We are talking about not violating or causing any mismanagement towards the infrastructure. So earlier, what we have seen that by default, uh, वो the farmers family would come in, उनका बेटा आता है, उनकी the whole clan would come together. They had a sense of ownership towards maintenance, towards who gets water when there was a certain time. Nobody get there. In fact, I even found something called a water clock. You know, if I do you know about it, the water clock?
No, no, please tell us.
Okay, so it's like this. You have a vessel of water, and a water clock is a metal. Um, it's like a bowl which has a certain hole, and it has enough weight that it fills into it fills at within a certain time. So it's like your hour clock, okay, like a sand hour clock. It's just basically the water, and जब वो खत्म हो जाता है तो आपका पानी का टाइम खत्म, आपकी फील्ड होती है. So that also was something
Simple,
very
isn't
unique in
it?
the place. Yes.
Absolutely, because we do know now that any perpetuality would have to have an economic fallout, otherwise, it won't. Simple. How you do it, how sensitively we do it is definitely our problem, but that has to be in place. Yes, thank you so much for that beautiful water clock. Yes, for telling us about it. And I immediately got very excited about Sangareddy because I live very well, we are in Sangareddy. And
Yes.
I'm wondering, is there any evidence? Because you talked about so many step wells here, and the general idea over here is that no, these are all surface water. The water is not good enough. The water is not clean enough. So I'm wondering, then there are 12 step wells in this region. Is there any evidence that says that the spontaneous preservation has helped the cause that you've highlighted? Because in some places there would have been a spontaneous preservation of the step wells.
Yeah.
Is there any evidence towards that?
Okay, so the conservation has happened.
Okay.
Conservation has not happened. These are just mapped and identified.
Oh, okay.
Oh, and it's mostly what, even the well like Ashtamukhi, okay, which is
Mm,
in Nizamabad, the conservation of the well is only because of the social and the cultural lens which is attached to. So
okay.
the people of the temple, the people of the locals, they come together because of the jatra, even the Raigiri. We have evidences that the social aspect is coming together and helping it, they identify to those temples. So if you see, maybe in Sangareddy also, that people just have to, it locally, and then yes, it is preserved. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. And I think questions are jumping in, Mansi. Yeah. So there is a
Yes.
question which says that in Telangana presently, who has taken the onus of restoration of the step wells and what is their generic prevailing status? That is from Zahir Hussain. I just read it out. If he's here, he could probably read it out himself. But since I've read it, you could please answer that. Is there in the chat box?
Yes, ma'am. Who So mostly what has happened with this present government is, each government has its stake on how important the water systems have become. And But what we see is Hydra doing a very good, responsible job, and they are pretty prompt to rescue a troubled water body, definitely. And they, in fact, have something very important, which is bylaws and rules, and you get properties which are Hydra compliant. So about step wells getting conserved, yes, Hydra and HMDA have made definite efforts towards conservation, and who's in charge of it? It's mostly government only, or it's the local bodies coming together. There are some evident successful water activists of the region. There is Yashwant Ramamurthy's work, which I have mentioned, which is the Forgotten Stepwells of Telangana. There is, I think, she's Kalpana Ramesh sir's wife, Kalpana Ramesh of Rainwater Project. She has definitely, come in the forefront to rescue many of the water bodies, and her contribution is remarkable. And um, I've seen a karma do badi Bapu Ghat
Karma,
Bauli.
yes.
Yes, and um, so I know that in paper, even NIUM also wanted to rescue a stepwell. So yes, I mean, you can definitely look at more of these NGO activities happening, and water activism. I guess that's the rescue team.
Right. Mansi, I know you have a question. I can see it. So would you like to go ahead and
Oh, yes.
yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sonia, for taking out time. So escaping from Himachal water disasters and being with us as one of the pillars of W4W Foundation. And I also want to bring a little bit of correction, as when Afreen was thanking me for the water endeavors, but actually W4W is a collective where Sonia is integral part of the collective. So it's not me. So just a small errata. Thanks, Afreen, for the wonderful presentation. And I was so much looking forward to it, as I did receive some calls from Telangana. People asking me, Mansee, does Telangana really have step wells? And these are big shots in architecture profession. Let me tell you that. Okay, so that way, a wonderful effort. And of course, thanks to Aga Khan also, who actually in the early days identified these gems of the state, because usually when we talk about step wells, it is Rajasthan and Gujarat that pops up in people's mindscape, especially in architecture, planning, and urban design profession. So I want to bring the question from the profession itself. And as Sonia knows, probably Afrin doesn't know, I am the devil's advocate in this session, and I am going to play the role of methodology. What I have been constantly seeing with scholars coming from architecture background is the expanse of documentation and work they really carry out in their PhD program. And personally, me, who has not done her PhD from architecture department, I am always looking for the research method and the research design. So if you may recall, when I was introducing the session itself, and I am still keen to know from Afreen, what are the methods which you have chosen? Because documentation is really the background work of a PhD program. So what are your real research methods, and how did you design them to bring out these learning? So one is, of course, literature review, but other than that, to just give you an example, one of my students who did a stepwell study in Eder here, he really went and did measure drawing with Citizen Collective. So he formed a collective. He did measure drawing of all the step wells which he could in his given time. So I'm just curious, what are the methods that are approved in your PhD so far? I know you are in second year, so maybe you are still finalizing your methods, but so far.
Yes. Um, so the methods are, first of all, we did document them. We have
Yes.
narrowed down to 11 step wells
Hmm.
for bringing the evidences, the empirical data, which we will run through a tool set to get the ritualistic evidences about this recipe.
How will you get the ritualistic evidence? Sorry to interject, but just for other participants to know, this is kind of a semi-jury kind of situation and also kind of a mentoring process we do implicitly. So how are you capturing that? What is the method you are using? Oral history you did mention, I remember from your presentation.
Yes, ma'am. We are basically it is if we have a questionnaire, which
Okay, very
yes,
good.
a questionnaire with which answers to the most toolkit scenarios, which I am. The toolkit is designed with an overlap of rituals and evidences towards build. So if there are even flora and fauna niches, they get documented. If there is a step designated to a certain thing, if there is a pavilion, there is a viewing gallery, there's a relaxation space, all of this is getting documented in order to understand that both are connected.
Okay, that brings me to the follow-up question. So is that the survey link which you provided to us, or is it something that you are filling by yourself?
The survey link is going ahead towards the pre-monsoon and the post-monsoon. It is a pretty general survey.
Okay, not the one which you just talked about. Not the one which you just.
The one which I have is towards the special people who, like, I would ask a priest and extract a toolkit information. Our water expert at the region, he's able to answer my questions. So those are like very detailed ones. Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Because you see, this is just a friendly advice to any scholar who is present here and also to you. And as long as you are in PhD and you are making any presentation anywhere, please have a slide on methods. Do not skip and do not underestimate the value of methods, because in PhD, we don't learn the subject. We learn to study the process of the subject. So process of study is more important than the study itself. This is my learning from my PhD. So one should be able to study any damn thing after the PhD. And I think it is better to specialize ourselves as research method specialists from PhD than a subject specialist. And I want to share with you that often people think that I am urban lake specialist and I am always surrendering myself that I don't do any lake development and I'm not a lake specialist. And I love research method. And it allows you to look at how one should study. So I think that is my most important advice to you. Please do not underestimate. Yeah. So now comes the question about the architecture and urban design. Do you have the method? Because I didn't see in your initial.
Yeah, I do have. I'll just finish.
No, that's fine. I'm just sharing because it wasn't there in your early presentation part.
It was there. It was there. I did skim.
You skipped. No problem. So this is just an advice. It's coming. It's coming. Yeah, let it come. And so this scan survey is for general survey, and your detailed survey is something else. So where you are taking out every detail. So just to get a clarity, because many of us have taken the scan, and there's a message in the chat box that if you could please share the scan details in the chat box. Okay, so for people, because I did see there was a message here. Now comes the million worth question from the profession.
This is the methodology.
In architecture, yes. In architecture planning, we are not teaching about water. And you already have a good, I will say, experience of working in the profession. And I think one of the biggest fallout of not teaching water as a subject in architecture planning has ended up seeing these step wells, these lakes and ponds, and particularly step wells, as artifacts and monuments to preserve. And please close your presentation. Thank you. Because we want your, you to be present on the screen. So I just wish to know from you, when you started this research and your experience of talking to many experts from the profession, outside the profession, Because I have serious problem when my profession looks at it as an artifact, as a monument to be preserved, because we completely misjudge that water conservation was the prima facie function, and giving it an architectural language was secondary. Adding a ritualistic tone to it was tertiary as part of. So let me just be very clear. So giving in an architectural language is secondary, as in for water conservation. Giving it a ritualistic shade was tertiary to ensure water management.
Yeah.
Two questions here, very tricky. Where did Afrin start? From architecture of the step wells or from the water conservation? And what is your experience of talking to many experts and people, not local people, okay? Experts and architecture, urban design, planners, everyone. How do you feel when they see it as a monument? I know most of my friends, they see it as monument, not as a water conservation structure. Because are we conserving water in it right now? Over to you.
Yeah, this is a really beautiful question, Mansee, and I'm so grateful for this question. Thank you
That's
so
why
much.
I'm here.
Yeah, it's your first part of the question. That is, what started first? Was it the ritual or the architectural build, or the water conservation aspect? It was water as a resource.
Hmm.
Water without the resource, there was no civilization. So each dynasty became intelligent enough to harvest it. So the build, when they brought the parallel of the culture, which is the tertiary part, that is the ritual aspect, they it became more of a reason to conserve. So they
No,
like,
but what? How did you start? That is, I am curious. See.
oh,
I mean,
how
we
did
have
I
to
start?
really understand in PhD. It's your research. So I'm curious, where did Afrin start? As a monument or as a water management structure? Because what was very appreciating from your presentation that you were constantly talking about the water and not really focusing. Of course, you did have the monumental part of
It is the water
presentation.
management structure, ma'am. Please let me answer that, because
Okay.
see, that was the reason why I was understanding the 15 zones, and then the zone 10, I narrowed it down, because what was the reason that the stepwells came into is because the perennial sources were lacking. It is the structure as a intelligence by itself. So we are talking about the engineering prowess also.
Okay. Now, what were you curious about, and what did you find from talking to many experts from the field, from our field? How do they see it? I'm just curious to know from you.
Yes. So, as you said, they do not know much from the region. When I'm especially in Bhopal and I'm giving my presentations, तेलंगाना को बहुत कम लोगों ने देखा है उस नजर से, and I know that people, I mean, everything culturally is really precious. Everything which is associated to rituals is sacred, and it is definitely conserved. But there is a lack of ownership, which is a carelessness which has seeped in. But the water experts are, yeah, what I see is there's a lack of scientific assessment, is what I genuinely understood. Okay, you find people going ahead and doing recharge wells, but then they do not have enough data about how much of it is needed where. So thoroughness and the methodology, and I mean the manner in which it is approached is kind of, the disconnect is seen in the scientific aspect.
Wonderful. You tempt me to give a quote from Niti Aayog, who talks about we have a more data crisis than water crisis. And
Yes.
of course, step wells are one of the last I think, water structures where we will invest and take a cognizance of, because they are expensive creatures. I mean, lakes, ponds, rivers are easy targets to work on because many of the step wells are hidden, as you rightly mentioned, difficult to find out. Many are in the private plots. That also makes it very, very difficult. And I just want to make some remarks here from the chat box talking about who has the onus of restoration, and Hydra came into discussion. And Hydra is a very newly formed body, but I think Hyderabad had before Hydra also a lot of other organizations talking about it, but it is only very recent that step wells have come to the fore of water conservation discussion in Telangana. So that way, I feel your PhD research and of course research later on is as your endeavor is very appropriately timed, as well as the amount of work you are putting in and energy you are putting in. I'm sure it is going to take not only you in the long run a long way, but of course we will see some more. I must say more discussions or conversations on step wells, because I mean, I don't think you and I can conserve a step well unless and until the decision makers and the community itself is becoming part of the conversation. And that also brings me a point where we can have a last call from any participant. If you want to add something, have a question or comment, please unmute yourself and engage with Afrin. At W4W, we strongly believe water conversations are crucial for water conservation. That's our tagline as well. So go ahead and please unmute yourself. And if you have questions or comments for Afrin, and of course, she's available after this session as well. This is just a moment to engage. Yes, Bineet.
Hi, Afrin. So what I remember from Qutub Sai tomb, there was a 3D scan done to find out the water system within it. Professor Sahil did it. I was not aware of it, but I got to know it afterwards. The Aga Khan, Natisnanda and all. So, recently I also got some idea about hydrogeology from Mr. Himanshu Kulkarni, Pune.
Yes.
So, have you correlated with the hydrogeology and aquifers for the case of Hyderabad along with the watershed?
Afrin, thank you, Bineet.
Thank you, Vineet, for this wonderful question. Yes, it's I know about the photogrammetry scans and the LiDAR scans, which has actually helped even in the conservation aspect and also the hydrogeological the data with the Hyderabad for a certain funded project, yes, is available, but then on general, it's not available in with thoroughness. We have somehow seen a lot of the groundwater body, Telangana groundwater body, giving us good insights. In for my greater research, I have referred to the government initiated satellite data. I have been able to harness those data sources. About me personally being able to fund a hydrogeological scan, not possible. So for a particular step well, not possible. So I was definitely looking at while acknowledging the fact that their occurrences were thoroughly parallel to their scarcity of water. So I was definitely looking at the Telangana state reports, and the satellite data.
Just to add here what Bineet was saying, and you had mentioned that I am keeping aside the groundwater part of the step wells. I'm just curious, do still local authorities and experts see it as a groundwater recharging unit? Again, back to the same question, or is it just an artifact? Because yes. I mean, I do remember the one which is restored inside the city, but that it is just an artifact.
The Bansilan step well you're talking about, yes, ma'am. Yes. Yeah. So the challenge of Hyderabad and the metropolitan level at which it has grown, and the to rescue these water bodies and restore the hydrological aspect of it is something which nobody has actually perceived. If these are in independent manners getting rescued to that region, it is beneficial. But to a whole, the whole state of Hyderabad, the whole region is not getting benefited because the human intervention has already intercepted the hydrological cycle in a really huge manner. At least in the city of Hyderabad is what we see, and this is my frank opinion that yes, this is the sadness attached to it, that they are living, they are like pastiche artifacts which are good to look at, and but the fact that the ones in the peri-urban region, their hydrological cycles are still intact. Yes, ma'am.
Interesting. Very interesting. Maybe we'll take the last question from Zahir Hussain. I saw you had unmuted yourself. Please unmute and make your questions or comments. Zahir Hussain. Do you still have questions?
Sorry, no questions. I was unmuted by mistake. It has been wonderful.
Yeah, thank you so much, Zahir. Yes, it has been a wonderful session today, and I can see the hard work. Yes, is there anyone? I think there's someone talking. I could not see. Yes, yeah. Alina, please go ahead. Please go ahead. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
We are always happy to take our participants.
Thank you so much. As India is a land of engineers, I wanted to ask if there's a system in the step wells where water purification takes place, like other than sedimentation, of course, like were Indians given access to pure water?
Very interesting question. And I read your chat box also that Afreen has been quite helpful and inspiring for your own work. All the best. Over to you, Afreen.
Engineering, the question is, India is a land of engineers. Yes. And what is the engineering progress inside a step well? Okay. So the fact that water reacts to gravity. Okay, so the water harvesting systems are all gravity fed, and this itself is an opportunity which we have lost. Definitely, I mean, like looking at the urban scenario now, we have completely lost that common sense about how the water interface should be parallelly planned. So earlier, during this typology conception, yes, all of the water harvesting and the movement of the water was all designed around the fact that it was gravity fed, and there is great engineering in being thoroughly sustainable for any region it belongs to. And there are a lot of examples. I mean, there is a whole essay on this now. If I would start answering, there is typologies of the gravity fed water harvesting mannerisms. Like there is the Rahat wheel, there is the Persian Rahat wheel, which is also seen in many of these Hyderabad steppers. There is the ox and the bull manner in which they thoroughly harvest the water. There is there are the manners in which they extract water from such a low area to the ones which is available above. So they keep it at the surface for people or even the cattle to access. So it is not just people, and a lot of energy is not we can visualize that step wells being so inaccessible, they are so low that nobody would actually go down and take those fetch a pail of water. We would hardly try to do that. So yes, there were cattle involved to bring the water to the surface, and then there are some sedimentation is one of the manner in which water is definitely naturally cleaned, but that's not the only science behind. I mean, just to give you some insight, the fact that I also bring the ritual is that during the Batkama, there are the certain flowers which go, these are local flowers which go back into the water, as a ritual, and they are placed and they are designed in a manner that they clean the water after the rains. So this is a post monsoon rains. So same is similar to the Ganesh Visarjan, which will happen tomorrow. There is a whole science to the clay idols which come, and which whole of India comes together and celebrates. But then what has happened is, the sadness is, the humans have complicated anything and everything. So there we have lost the whole sustainability aspect of these step wells. Yes, there is a lot of engineering to these step wells. Yes.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I appreciate your insight.
Thank you. Thank you. Mansee, we cannot hear you. You're on mute. Mansee.
See, Mansee, you're on mute. Mansee.
Oh, sorry. I was already speaking quite a lot. Thank you so much for this wonderful session. I can completely imagine that as PhD scholars, we can really immerse ourselves and can go on and on and on. But Friday Water Thesis Club has to close somewhere. And this is a good time to close. But before I let you go, I would definitely like to greet all of you for the Teachers' Day, Onam, Eid, and many more festivals for that matter. And I'm completely aware, and I take it reassured every time that I get more from my students and fellows and speakers than I give to them. So thanks a lot, Afrin, for this wonderful presentation. And I'm really learning, loving, and living this W4W Water Talk series and the relationship I have built with my colleagues, Sonia here, in true spirit. Next week, on Wednesdays for Water, our signature program on September 10th, we are going to discuss community water management in Odisha. The information is in the chat box there. Next Monday, which is on September 8th, when we do Monday Munching and Musing with Women for Water, where we bring in a woman in the water sector who have their huge body of work, and we try to acknowledge and appreciate their work. We have professor from IIT Kharagpur, Dr. Jinia Mukherjee, a renowned water scholar. Then we are also preparing end of this month for our annual water festival at Ahmedabad University in Ahmedabad, which is on 26th and 27th. The information for attending the water festival is also available in the chat box. All this information will be also available in our social media and website, www.w4w.in. Do keep checking them, because there is always something which is happening, because as we strongly believe, water conversations must continue to make water everybody's business. One of the businesses, of course, conservation and conservation of cultural heritage. Thanks once again to all of you, all the participants. We are closing towards 400 sessions, making us one of the longest water conversation ever taken place. And we are so grateful to all our speakers, so above 600 of them, to be honest, and nearly 10,000 of participants who have attended our sessions. We are also grateful to all the team members who make it happen. Thanks all of you. Please take care. See you soon, Monday, Wednesday, or Friday.